right, everyone. Good to be here. Right. ריבונו עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו מחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזנך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסא כבודך כרך ניחוח, ותציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודיך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית את דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשר בדברים אלו. ובזכותם תהיה עינינו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצון ימי פי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Master of the universe and Lord of lords, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we give thanks before you, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, in bowing the head and prostrating ourselves that you brought us close to your Torah and to your service, the holiest of services, and you've given us an inner meaning of the portion of your holy Torah. What are we and what is our life, that you've dealt with us such a great loving kindness as this? Therefore we lay our supplication before you, that you pardon and forgive all our sins and iniquities, and do not let our iniquities separate us from you. And may it be your will, O Lord our God and God of our fathers, that you prepare our hearts to have reverence of you and love of you. And may your ears listen to these our words. Open our uncircumcised heart in the inner meanings of your Torah. And may this our learning give pleasure before the throne of your glory as a sweet-smelling fragrance. Bestow upon us the light of the source of our soul in all its aspects. And may the sparks of your holy servants shine forth, through whom you revealed these words into the world. And may their merit and the merit of their fathers, the merit of their Torah, their wholeness and holiness, stand by us that we do not stumble in these words. And through their merit enlighten our eyes in what we are learning, as the sweet singer of Israel said, open my eyes and I will look on the wonders of your Torah. For the Lord gives wisdom from his mouth, knowledge and understanding. May the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Great. Okay, wonderful. All right, everyone. So what we're going to look at today is one of the most mysterious aspects, I think, of the...
The volume is very low. This is Eva. I'm so sorry. I cannot hear you. I'm so sorry.
You can't hear me? As everybody else can hear me? Is it okay for everybody else?
We can hear you, but it's a little bit... turn you up. Yeah.
Okay, so let me see what I can do about that then. Is that any better?
That's better.
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Okay, great. Is it okay for everybody else?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. No, I'm glad you said. I mean, you know, it's impossible to do Zooms if you can't hear anything. Okay, Lauren said yep, so that's great. All right, wonderful. Okay, I'm sorry we're having so many technical issues today, but what can you do? All right, so there we go. So it's one of the most mysterious I think, aspects of the whole of the Torah is the story of Joseph and the brothers. Okay, they got to a point where Joseph was sold by his brothers in down to Egypt, but there's very different takes on this in the Zohar, and things are not quite what they seem, put it that way. But there's the first phrase I want to look at to start off with, is the phrase Et achai ani mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers. All right, now we're going to I'm sorry that we're just going to look into It'll take me a while to get all the sources up again because I had them all up and then had to restart my computer, which was a bit of a nuisance. Never mind. So we're going to find the story of the selling of Joseph. So if I'm not mistaken, it's around about here somewhere. Yes, I think it's just before there. Here we go. The story really begins when Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons. Okay?
We can't see it. It's not on screen share.
Sorry, thank you. I forget. There we go. Thank you. All right. So it says, and Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons. Okay? Ki ben zkunimhu, vasalok tonik pasim, and he made a coat of many colors. And his brothers saw that his father loved him from all the other brothers. And it says they hated him and they couldn't speak peaceably with him. All right, so this is the plain story. And then you know the story of the dreams, okay? And then, and his brothers were jealous, okay? And then his brethren go and to shepherd their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel, now it says Yisrael, so the Shekhinah was with him. His full name was there, Yisrael, says to Joseph, surely your brothers are shepherding the flock in Shechem. I will send you to them. And he says, Hineni. Now, the word Hineni is a very specific word. I mean, it only really turns up in the Torah when somebody is going to really change their lives. You know, is going to do something really drastic. You know, Hineni, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm going to come, I'm going to do your will. He says. So it's like Joseph knew in his heart of hearts that the moment of his life had come, that he was going to fulfill his destiny. And he says, Hineni. And he says, go and see what is the shlom of your brothers? What is the shlom of your flock? And bring me back word. Doesn't sound to me like a very important mission. Just go and see how your brothers are. Why should anything have happened, And bring me back word. So it's clear that the whole mission to go to Shechem, to look for the brothers, was not what it looks like on the surface. And the piece we're actually going to look at is this one. V'imtza'ehu ish, and a man found him. V'nei to'eh b'sadeh, and he was wandering in the field. V'shalehu ish le'mor ma tavakesh, and the man asked him, what are you looking for? Vayomer et achai anochi mevakesh, and he said, I'm looking for my brothers. Hagidan eli eifo hemoim. Can you tell me, please, where they are shepherding? V'yomar ish nasu mizeh, and the man said they departed from here. Ki shamati omrim ne'elcha Dotyana, I heard them say they're going to Dothan. V'elchu Yosef achar achav, and Joseph went after his brothers. V'imtza'im b'Dotan, he found them in Dotan. Rashi says, and the Zohar says as well, V'yimtza'ehu ish, and a man found him. V'nei to'eh b'sadeh. Who was the man? The man was the angel Gabriel. Okay? The word ish refers here to the angel Gabriel. And the angel Gabriel found him in the field. The field is also the field of consciousness. And he's saying, what are you looking for? What are you asking? And he said, I'm looking for my brothers. So he's not looking for just his brothers, he's looking for brotherhood. He's looking to join together as a holy band. Now, why should Joseph want to join as a holy band with his brothers? Because it's very clear from the blessing that Yaakov gives the brothers when he's dying in the Parsha Vayechi, that every single one of those brothers had a completely different way in Kedusha. He's in holiness. Each one of them had a totally different pathway in holiness. Okay? If we look at them as different sfirot, for example, you could say that each one of them represented a different sfira. You really could say that. Each one of them had different characteristics, different ways. And for them to band together as a band, to be one, is not so easy. And he's looking for that brotherhood. Okay? I'm looking for the brothers. Now, I think that the issue here is the brotherhood needs to be formed. If you think about brothers in the Torah up till now, the first brothers that we've ever had so far, I can stop the share for a moment. Wait a minute. No, that's not what I meant to do. There. The first brothers that we had in the Torah is from Cain and Abel. Okay? And they clearly didn't do too well. They were, so different in their inner sense, in their inner essence. Cain carried with him all the aspect of the snake, all the aspect of the tree of good and evil. Abel had the tree of life, and they were just like, they just couldn't get it together at all. I'm not surprised. They were just so different. Abel was in the side of holiness. Cain was in the side of the unholiness. Nevertheless, Cain had very big vessels, and if he had managed to control his and get it together, it would have been definitely a different story. However, Cain and Abel. All right, then you get the story of Isaac, Yitzhak, and Ishmael. Ishmael was born first, then Yitzhak, and Ishmael again had to be sent away. He was mocking. He was not worthy to be brought up together with Yitzhak, and the tradition goes that that Abraham had to carry on the tradition only through Yitzhak, and he had to send Ishmael away. And then you have Jacob and Esau, and again we've had that division between the brothers, that Jacob was the one who eventually was able to stay in the side of holiness, and Esau was the one who went to the side of evil. So they weren't able to become one band, because you can't make a band if your fundamental desires are so very different. Okay? You've got to have the same aims in order to become a band. Now, this is something that Rabbi Ashlag talks about in his works, in his writings on the love of companions, and that's what we're going to go to in a minute. So the first time you actually got the possibility of making brotherhood is actually with the 12 tribes of Israel, with the brothers and Joseph, because although they all had different ways of Kedusha, of working towards God, nevertheless they were all aiming for the same place, which was to come to God, but they all had different ways of doing it. Now, when you've got different people doing different ways, it's still not easy to make a band. And this is what we're going to look at today. So what I want to do is I need to open, okay, the book, The Master of the Ladder. Recent files, hopefully some of that. Here, this will do. Okay. That's on page 108. I had all sorts of things ready here. 1 second, maybe another one open. Good. I got 2 of them here. A minute. Let me see if I can open the other stuff as well. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I managed to recapture some of what I had earlier. The first thing I wanted to, 118, okay, I'll remember that, to look at was here. Now, I do share screen again, don't I? Share screen. There. Okay. And this is what Rav Ashlag had to write about this whole issue. And a man found him, and the man was Gabriel, okay? Found Joseph. And behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they're herding the sheep." The field refers to the consciousness from which a person brings produce with which he can sustain his world. And the work of the field consists of ploughing and sowing and reaping. And a field that God has blessed is designated as one in which those who sow in tears will reap in joy. But a man might get lost in the field. He might get lost in his intellect till he doesn't know which way will bring him to his true purpose. And the man, the angel Gabriel, found him and asked him, "What are you looking for?" In other words, "Can I help you?" And he answered, "I'm looking for my brothers." What is Joseph really asking for? It's as if he's saying, if I were to band together with my brothers as one company, that is, if I were to be part of a group that is working on the love of each other, on helping each other, and helping each other get to our goals, then I would be able to ascend the highway that leads to the house of God. And this way, this highway is called the way of giving unconditionally. Because it's to come to God, we need to work against our nature, against our inborn nature. And the only way we can achieve our goal, being able to give unconditionally, is through the love of our companions, in which each one helps his fellow. But the man, Gabriel, said, the brothers journeyed from here. And Rashi, the great Torah commentator, teaches they journeyed away from their brotherhoods. In other words, they don't want to join with you. And this disunity was ultimately the cause of the exile of the children of Israel in Egypt. Well, on the one hand, you can say that. But on the other hand, the Zohar certainly says that the reason for the exile and the fact that the children of Israel had to go down to Egypt, which is the process that we're beginning to see unfold in these weeks, in these sidras, okay, is because it was foretold in the Brit Bein Abtarim, to Abraham. Thank you. In the Brit Bein Abtarim, that which was the vision that was given to Abraham when he was given his name, and he was promised that his children would be as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as they'd be so numerous he wouldn't be able to count them. And he asked the question, how do I know I'll be able to pass on my faith to my children? And the answer was, you should surely know that your children are going to be slaves in Egypt, for 400 years. Okay, so this was already predetermined. Nevertheless, it does seem to suggest, and it's only a suggestion, that if they had been able to come together as one band, the descent into Egypt might not have been necessary. Okay? So on the one hand, it was foretold and it was decreed that they would go down into Egypt. On the other hand, it might have been that if they'd been able to join together, they would have been able to manage without the exile. We don't know. Rabbi Ashlag goes on to say, to enable ourselves to leave our own exile, our own inner exile, which is caused by our use of our egoism, of our selfish love, of our wills to receive ourselves alone, we need to join with others who also want to work together on establishing love between all our members, join a group, to everybody together, and then we will merit to leave our own inner Egypt and be fit to receive the Torah. Nevertheless, you just can't just join with everybody, because if people are like, if you've got this dichotomy, this basic dichotomy of different ideals that, like for example, there was between Jacob and Esau, then they can't join. Jacob has to go his way, and Esau goes on his way. And this, in fact, is what we see in the Torah, that Esau goes off to Edom, goes and Mount Seir, and Jacob goes his way, and he goes to around the area of Shechem. So you can't join with somebody unless they've got the same goals. Nevertheless, if you join with somebody who's got the same goals of coming to God, of coming to spirituality, but they're coming in different ways, that's a good thing, because then you learn from each other, and you band together, you actually get a much stronger band. Now, one of the things which I find very fascinating is the story, of course, of Rabbi Ashlag himself and the students who made up the group. So I just want to see if I can find the pictures. Here we are. Okay, so there's the picture of Rabbi Ashlag, and there he is studying. That's him with his grandson, teaching his grandson. He's writing. Now, here's the students. Now, Rabbi Moshe Baruch Lemberger, I mean, I just really love his face. I mean, he's just like, it's just so much love and humility. He was a man who came to the work of Rabbi Ashlag from devotion, absolute devotion to Torah and to love, a man of tremendous humility, and yet at the same time able to dance for God for hours on end. He didn't need anybody to dance with him. He could just dance on his own for hours. A man of tremendous love. And there was Rabbi Joshua Horowitz. He was another one of the great Talmidim, a man again of simplicity and love and a tremendous purity. That's Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, who had firmness of character. He was Rabbi Ashlag's firstborn son, and he was a man of tremendous will and tremendous character. And this is Rabbi Simcha Edelstein. He radiated joy to all who came into contact with him. Rabbi Ashkenazi, who was wholehearted. Each one of them had their own way in doing the work. With Rabbi Yehoshua Yehuda Tzvi Brandwein, who was of tremendous intellect, a fiery intellect. And there's Rabbi Baruch Ashlag again. So, in fact, one of the things that we notice in the writings of Rabbi Ashlag is that in almost every single one of the letters that he wrote to his students, he was asking them to focus again on loving the companions, because it was so, I think the reason why he kept writing to them about it was because it was very difficult. It wasn't easy for them. They were so different. Their approach to the work of Rabbi Ashlag was so different. Each single one of them had their own individual personalities, that for them to be able to come together as a band was actually very hard indeed. And there was a nice letter. Let's see if I can find it again. Where was it? I don't know. I think it was here somewhere, 60 something. Possible. Here we go. Found it. There you are. That's a miracle. I can make that a bit bigger for you if you like. I understand that you're not putting... He's writing a letter to the students. Here we go. It was on many occasions that Rabbi Ashlag emphasized how important it was for the members of the Beit Midrash to develop brotherly love between themselves and to express this love in real ways as a means of overcoming all obstacles on their path of serving the Creator. And this is what he writes. I understand that you're not putting much effort into the tikkun of the will to receive for yourself alone, as is expressed through the mind and through the heart. Nevertheless, do the best you can, and the salvation of God comes in the twinkling of an eye. But the most important way that stands before you today is through all of you uniting in fellowship. Make greater and greater efforts in this, for the effort involved in this can compensate for all lacks. In other words, what he's telling us is that what we can't manage on our own, we can manage if we do it together with each other. Okay? And if we can, because each person has only got his own particular vessels with which to do the work in holiness, which to work for God. But when he joins with somebody else who's got different vessels, different capabilities, different desires, different approach, they both gain. Okay? It's synergistic. It's much more than 1 + 1. It's 1 + 1 = 5. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. All right? It really makes a huge difference. And in a letter written to Rabbi Moshe Yair Weinstock, who was one of the chief of the pupils, therefore I surely remind you again at this special time of the urgency of the matter of loving your companions, on which all the merit of our existence depends, and which will give the measure of our success, which is near to us. And therefore turn aside from all of your other business that seems so important, and place your deepest attention to consider new ways and true ways of connecting your hearts together as one complete heart, so that you shall fulfill the scripture and you shall love your neighbor as yourself in simplicity. I think that's very beautiful. Okay? Now there's one other piece I want to look at in Master of the Ladder, which is here. It said it was 118, I think it was.
You want to go the other way? Oh, no.
Oh, there we go. Right. Got it. Yeah, that's the piece. So the next time, well, not necessarily the next time, but one of the other times when I thought about the word brothers, when does the word brother appear? Is actually in connection with Moses. All right. Now, I think it's Exodus chapter 2. Find it for you. 1 second. So I'll change the window in a moment. This one we need to go to Genesis Bible, Exodus. I think it's 2. Yes, that's it. Now I need to change the share. There we go. Right. All right. So here we've got the story of Moses, and Moses, as you know, was a little baby, and he was in the and his mum to save his life, put him in the little basket in the Nile, and Pharaoh's daughter reached out and drew him out of the water, and she basically grew him up. It was in those days, Vigdal Moshe, and Moses was now grown up. Vayetze el Echav, and he went to his brothers. Okay, he went out to his brothers. I think that's an extraordinary little phrase. He'd grown up as a prince in the palace, you know, and yet what's he looking for? He's looking for his brothers. So here we have again, he's going out to his brothers. What does he do? Vayar b'sivlotam. He shares in their burdens. He sees their sorrows. Okay? Vayar ish mitzri makeh ishivri me'echav. And he sees an Egyptian man hitting a Hebrew, or one of his brethren. Okay? So what does he do? Vayifen kovacho, he looks here and there. Vayaki ain't ish, he sees there's nobody around. Vayachit ha-mitzri, he hit the Egyptian, he killed him in fact, and hid him in the sand. Okay? Vayetze bayom hasheni, and he goes out again. V'nei shnei anashim ivrim nitzim, and two Hebrew men are quarreling. And he says, you wicked man, why are you hitting your fellow? Okay? And this is again, something that Rabbi Ashlag looks at. So what is Moses? Moses is going to redeem the whole of Israel. How does he see them? He sees them as his brothers. What does he do? He shares in their affliction and takes it on himself. I mean, by the fact that he killed the Egyptian, he now has to flee, okay, into the desert, because otherwise he'll get killed by Pharaoh. Okay? So his brotherhood is so important to him. And in fact, that's probably the reason why the children of Israel had to go down into Egypt, was because they had to forge together the bonds of brotherhood. Okay? And that was, Rav Ashlag teaches us, that was an absolutely essential condition before they were able to get the Torah on Mount Sinai. The whole purpose of going down into Egypt and the suffering that they underwent in Egypt was to bring together, to forge the bonds of brotherhood. Okay, and now we're going to read what Rav Ashlag has to say about that. So I can change the thing back to here. Okay. Let me see, I can put that a little bit bigger for you if you like. Zoom in. There we go. The scripture, this is from the Rabbi of Gur, known as the Bet Yisrael, and he taught, the scripture states, Moses went out on the second day, and behold, there were two Hebrew men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, why do you strike your friend? The inner meaning of Moses' question was, why don't you pay heed to the injunction, love your neighbor as yourself, seeing that the main cause of the exile was the lack of peace among the sons of Jacob? Furthermore, as it is written, and Moses went out to his brothers and he saw their burden, this verse teaches us that Moses suffered along with his fellows. In so doing, he acted kindly to his fellow and increased love, which is the opposite of causeless hatred. And that is what Moses, our teacher, began to do. And by this means, he brought the redemption of the children of Israel closer. Okay? And likewise in the future, when there'll be love of friends and the precept of love your neighbor as yourself will be upheld, then the true redemption will come. And what was the necessary precondition for them to receive the Torah on Mount Sinai was that they actually as Ki'ish Echad Belev Echad, that they came to Mount Sinai as one man with one heart. Okay? That they encamped under the mountain as one man and one heart. They had to find that brotherhood. They had to support each other. Okay? And so this is how the true redemption will come, through loving our neighbor as ourselves. Okay? So what I want to do now is to finish off our time together is I'd like to look at this piece now in the Zohar, because I think it's very beautiful. So I'm going to change the share. I think maybe I don't need to do that. I think it might be there. Can you see that Zohar there?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Now, where am I? Where am I beginning? I think I'm here already. Yes, that's the one. Kuf Aleph, I think, is the piece I wanted to begin with. Well, maybe it might have been Kuf, I can't remember. No, this is the one I wanted. Right. Vitamar, Shesham Alu Shvatim, Elaine Inun Kimo de Olma, Vitikuna de Olma Tata, Velo Tema de Olma Tata Bil Chodoi, Ela Filu de Olma Ila, Dichtiv Shifte Ya, Edut L'Israel. L'Israel Daikak, Gin de Inun Kiyuma Le Tata, Saduta Inun Le'ela, V'kulo Lehodot L'Shem Hashem, Loda Shemei de Kutchabichu L'chol Sitrin, Dichtiv Lehodot L'Shem Hashem. And that's in the Aramaic. And what it says is that the tribes of Israel went up there. It's from a quotation. I can't remember where it's from. Okay, never mind. But it's, I think, Sham Alu Shifteya, I think it's from Psalms. These are the tribes themselves are the what keeps the world going, all right? Because they are all different ways of serving God, and they correct the lower world. And if you say the only correct the lower world, but that's not true. They also correct the higher world as well, because it's written Shiftei Yah Eidot L'Israel. The tribes of God are the testimony for Israel. And Israel precisely, they uphold the world below, and they are testimony for the world above. And all is there to give thanks to the name of God, to give thanks of the name of the Holy Blessed One in all aspects. In other words, this tiny piece in the Zohar tells you the tremendous stature of the potential of the souls of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? And this is just amazing. So that they really, really did have this incredible potential, and that the story of the selling of Joseph is not at all what it looks like on the surface. And one of the best places to actually read about it, if you want to go into it more deeply, is actually Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach's commentaries on this, because he absolutely said that they themselves didn't hate Joseph. It was like it was the Shekhinah knew that was what had to happen. וימצאהו איש, מה כתוב למעלה? And a man found him, found Joseph wandering in the field. Okay, I'll just read the Hebrew because we don't have so much time. What's written above? And Israel said, go and I will send you to them. Go, he's talking to Joseph, go to Dothan, go to Shechem and look for your brothers and I will send you to them to ask how they are. וכי יעקב השלם שכב את יוסף מכל בניו, היה יודע שכל אחיו שונאים אותו, למה שלח אותו עליהם? But Jacob, who was completely whole and completely perfect, and who loved Joseph more than all his other sons, he knew that the brothers were hating him. Why did he send him to them? Umeshiv. But he answers, Elahu lo chashad otam. He had no suspicion of them. Shehaya yodea shkulam hem tzadikim, because he knew that they were all completely righteous. Ela velo chashad otam, and he did not have any suspicion of them. Ela hakodesh baruch hu sivev kol zeh, and that God Himself caused all this to happen. So what actually happened was in their deepest hearts, they didn't want to sell Joseph. In their deepest hearts, they didn't hate him. They didn't. It was something that had to happen in the world, that the children of Israel went down to Egypt. And so it's like God actually put the negative energies in their hearts, even though they themselves didn't actually want that. They were all tzaddikim. Why was it? It was all had to happen that way in order to fulfill the decree which Avram Avinu to Abraham which was given to Abraham at all that early time on in the covenant, which was called Bein HaBetarim, which is when God promised him that his seed will inherit the land. So we don't really know is the answer to all of this. I mean, on the one hand, you have the hatred, the jealousy, the discord. On the other hand, you have the fact that the Zohar says that they were tzaddikim. But let's see what happens. Ashkahana b'sifrei. I found in the early books that the sons of Jacob, it had to be that they kind of overcame Joseph before he went down to Egypt. Because if he'd gone down to Egypt and they hadn't had control over him from the beginning, kind of thing, then the Egyptians would have had governance over Israel and they would never been able to get out of there. And therefore it had to be that Joseph was sold into being a slave by his brothers, and they sort of like ruled over him to sell him as a slave. And therefore, when Joseph was subsequently king and he ruled over the Egyptians, we found that Israel was already ruling over all of them. Okay? And because they already were the ones who caused this whole thing to happen, it's like they were ruling over the king, which was Joseph, who'd been sold into slavery, and therefore they also had control, in at least in the spiritual, over the Egyptians. And this was actually a way in which the spiritual energy of the Egyptians was weakened, and eventually they would one day be able to get free from them. So that's another aspect, isn't it? That God prepared all this, and it had to be not just that they went down to Egypt, but it had to happen in this particular way. Nevertheless, the bit that I want to come to is here. Here. And a man found him. Zel Gabriel, that is Gabriel, and explained that Gabriel found him. And what does it mean? He's wandering, okay? Because he's trusting on his brothers and looking for the brotherhood from them, and he can't find. And he's also looking for them themselves, and he can't find. And that's why he was wandering. And he asked the angel, and the angel said to him, what are you looking for? And the angel said to him, I'm looking for my brothers, and they've traveled from there. Rabbi Yehuda opened his discourse. If only you would give me, you would be for me as a brother to me. This scriptures explained and refers to the congregation of Israel, the Malchut, as the Shekhinah. And she says it to the king, okay, which is Ampin. Be a brother to me. So that it's like the relationship now between Joseph and his brothers is now likened to the relationship between the Shekhinah and the Holy Blessed One, the Shekhinah and God, okay? Be like a brother, okay? Just as he gives them food and feeds them in the time when of starving, when they are starving, so the Shekhinah receives light from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the Holy Blessed One. Be to me like a brother. In other words, be like Joseph with his brothers. Now this is like turning the whole thing around completely, because of course when Joseph is the king of Egypt, he's the one who's giving food to his brothers. He's keeping the brotherhood alive. He's keeping their lives alive. He's the source of all the goodness. Okay? So now the Joseph and the brothers is not Joseph and the brothers in separation, but Joseph and the brothers as a togetherness, as one feeding the other, as helping each other. And this is what the Shekhinah says to God, be to me like a brother. And this is why the Psalm says, Laman achai v're'ai, for the sake of my brothers and friends. It's God speaking to the Shekhinah and the Shekhinah speaking to God, that we see that they can be together as brothers. Okay, so he wanted that, so the relationship eventually becomes, okay, that of unity and giving to each other. Bo'eh, come and see that Joseph, even though his brothers did not act like brothers when he fell into their hands, nevertheless he was a brother to them when they fell into his hands, and he comforted them, and he spoke to their heart, and he spoke to their heart until they believed him. So here we see this whole story of brotherhood in so many different angles, okay? And I think, honestly, I think it's really fascinating, and it's got a lot of messages for us today, okay? To join together with other people who've got the same aims, the same ideals, even if we're not working in the same way, as the brothers were certainly different from each other, just as the students of Rabbi Ashlag were also different from each other. Nevertheless, to join together, and we can give each other until they become like Joseph became with his brothers, that he gave to them and fed them and looked after them, and they became like the Holy Blessed One and the Shekhinah together. Okay. All right. That's a take on Joseph and his brothers.